Welcome to Not Suitable for Work. I'm your host, Peter C. Diamond. You think your office is nuts? Wait until you hear some of these stories.
It's a story I tell people as a cautionary tale of what not to do in a pressure-filled situation.
And there's nothing like making a joke and looking at a room full of people who, are just stone-faced, and they know that you blew it.
What about our professional dynamic has given you a license to act in this way?
Here's your colleague that you've worked with for all these years, and do you know anything about him? Anything about him at all?
With each podcast, I interview folks who have a humorous work story to share. Along the way, I'll offer advice to help you make sense of your own office nonsense. Don't worry, no careers were harmed in making Not Suitable for Work. Names and places may have been changed to protect the not so innocent. Without further ado, let's get this show on the road. Experts will often say people change careers at least 3 to 5 times during their lifetime. This isn't concrete data, but this feels about right. I'm on my 3rd career, and based on qualitative data from many of my clients' experiences, this seems to ring true. In our quest to change careers and do something different, it can also impair our judgment when interviewing and evaluating whether or not to join a company. We overlook the signs that would otherwise give us reason to pause. That's exactly what happened to my guest, Jessica Dorfman Jones.
For a brief time, so a book packager, which is something that I did for a decent amount of time, a book packager is just like a movie producer, but for books. And one of the really important things that you need to know is how to actually physically make a book. And so I wound up getting a job that was sort of like an apprenticeship for me with a company that did print brokering, but also print production. And I learned a huge amount there. It was amazing for that. But the environment was really nuts, and I needed a job very badly. I'd already been a literary agent, and I knew that I wanted to do something that was more involved in creating content, not just selling other people's work. So being a book packager was the first step towards doing that. And so I took this job. I'd actually just gotten divorced, and I really needed a job. And this thing landed in my lap, and I thought, oh my God, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened. I'm so excited. It checks all the boxes. And the company I worked for, their main office was in Marin County, but I was in the New York office. And New York office was kind of small, but I was in charge of it. And it was basically, sales and production team.
So this is a significant job then, if you're in charge of the office.
Yeah, it was a significant job. And I had interviewed with the head of the company, and the company was owned by 2 brothers. And there was a 3rd brother who was involved in the company, but not an owner. It's sort of, even from day one, it was clear he was sort of the black sheep, but he was, still in the mix. And, but these guys were kind of weird. I just couldn't put my finger on it in the beginning. And as with most things, when you really need to work, anything that looked a little shady or off kilter, I happily overlooked because I just needed the job. But there was something just about their manner and the way they dressed. There were a lot of untucked white tunic shirts, and lots of prayer beads, but there was no discernible religion being discussed or touted or even acknowledged. But there's just and there was something about the demeanor of these 2 brothers that was strangely imperious, yet also distant.
Okay.
Which I suppose that's a bit of an oxymoron, but that's what they were like.
So they're
okay.
So they're based in Marin, is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, they're in Marin. I'm in New York. And the first time I really spent... Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
No, the first time that I really spent any time with them was at Book Expo America, which was in LA. So I went out to California and wound up meeting the whole crew.
Okay.
So you had a question there.
And so when you did interview with them to get the job.
Yes,
And
I did.
but all three brothers are involved in this, and are all three of them kind of wearing the tunics and the beads and
yes,
okay.
yes.
And one last question: are there other family members involved in this?
No.
Okay.
Great question, but no.
Okay.
Just these guys.
All right.
And this is a side note that has nothing to do with anything other than to give you a great visual. They were all tiny people. I'm 5'2", and we basically would see eye to eye. They were these little tiny people, which is a little disconcerting, just to be honest with you. And they're very tan, like unbelievably tan little people in white tunics. And so I got to LA and to the hotel where I was supposed to stay, where, the company had booked rooms and blah, blah, blah. And we were in East LA in a motel that had bars on it.
Classy, really classy.
This is really, this is not good. But, I'm new to the company. I'm thinking I'm just going to not charge in and be totally aggressive. I'm just going to wait and see what the story is here.
Now, are you thinking I could have been in a cushy office as a literary agent? Like, at some point in time, you're thinking this is what I traded to do?
That's like my daily internal narrative anyway, with everything. What did I just do? Oh, no. So, yeah, I mean, and with any time that you switch a job or decide to pursue a new interest, at least for me, there's always a feeling of, was this a rash decision? Is this going to spit me out on the other side where I want to be, or is what's going to become of me?
Yeah,
basically.
and in East LA, these tiny guys, aren't really going to be much by way of bodyguards or protectors.
No.
Of you.
No, but they were hilarious in their levels of machismo.
Okay.
So they were really, right out of central casting with everything you would imagine, like tiny guy, big personality, the whole 9 yards. So they arrive at the hotel and they are visibly shaken by how bad it is, but they're trying to pawn it off as not a problem. And it's also very clear that they're being super cheap. And I knew from other people who were in the company that there was a lot of money in the company and these guys had a lot of money. So I couldn't understand why they were penny pinching to this level, but okay. And I think we all actually did wind up moving to a different hotel, to their, eternal credit. But so we go and eventually, so blah, 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 everyone niceties. We get to the next morning. Everyone has to go to book Expo, and I'm supposed to be schmoozing and finding publishers who will want to work with us. And it's in the Staples Center, so it's this gigantic space. I did not expect to run into anyone, and I did. I ran into the husband of my oldest friend, and oldest friend as in since birth. Our older siblings were friends. So we were born into this friendship. That was it. So I've known her forever. Her husband, I'm like, my God, what are you doing here? And I had forgotten he actually was a paper salesperson. He worked for a green company before that was really a thing. And he asked, well, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm working with blah, blah, blah company. And he stared at me. And I thought, oh, my God. What? This is not good. And it wasn't just staring. It was a look of nauseated horror and amusement. And I was like, this is definitely not a good sign. And he said, you're kidding. You're with, and then he named the guys. And I said, yeah, they're right over there, as a matter of fact. And he bursts out laughing like he's going to wet his pants. And he says, how did you wind up working for the Hare Krishna? I said, excuse me. I think I'm rather worldly. I've seen a few things. I'm open to all ways of approaching the world, but it carries with it a little bit of a stigma. And I said, "You're kidding me! What the hell?" And he said, "Oh yeah, they're Hare Krishna, and not only are they Hare Krishna, but one of the older brother, who's the absolute head of this company, landed in Marin because he started his own branch of Hare Krishna. So it has now come to my attention that I'm working for a cult leader, and his brother, who is the co-cult leader, and the other brother turns out is a drug addict." And it's not a surprise, because it turns out that the middle brother very proudly will, on that trip and any other time, would regale anyone who would listen with stories about how he used to run marijuana and cocaine up the coast from Mexico to San Francisco. And I was like, what did I do? Is this like a Tarantino movie? Like, where am I? What just happened? And, to get to the point in the way that it affected me, they ran the company as though it were a cult. And it was all rumors and innuendo and factions and who trusts who and over-personalizing and invasive behavior, completely insane. And I managed to get myself out of there. I think it was in 18 months. I had a whole new situation lined up, but it was the most bizarre. And one of the brothers was doing something really shady with one of my clients, and I was so anxiety ridden because I knew I was going to get fired if he found out what I was going to do, but I couldn't tolerate what was happening. And I called the client and told him, the company is trying to rip you off, and the real price is this, and they quoted you something that's 6 times the price, and they're trying to take your copyright, so you should probably get out of here. So that's the kind of stuff that was going on, really on a weekly basis. Oh, and they continued to have some shady dealings with drug stuff, because our bonuses would come to us in the mail. We would have $100 bills stuck in the leaves of books that were sent to us. And it was, like, well, if you don't want the money, don't take it. And who, of course, is going to say no to a handful of $100 bills fresh out of a copy of Grapes of Wrath or whatever it was shoved into. So that was my environment of the weirdest bosses I've ever had. And I can regale you with the sexual harassment and the unwanted touching by the brother who was the drug addict, and I had to have the locks to the New York office changed so that he couldn't come in. It was madness. So I learned what it was like to be in a cult without actually having to get the running shoes and the tracksuit or whatever the outfit was du jour and join full on. It was bizarre.
Well, and
that's the light version. That's not the super dark version. That's the light version.
That's the light version. And but it also seems to run a little counter to isn't Hare Krishna supposed to be like spiritual life? And is this kind of like the this is stepbrother of the Hare Krishna stuff, or like?
I regret to say that my experience there really turned me off of pursuing anything in that world of Hare Krishna after that, and I've never studied it. So I can't say that there's any, I would be loath to say that there's any religious group that would self-describe as a freakish, drug-addled, sexually debauched cult. But apparently, from what I understood from the other people in the Marin office, it was not out of keeping with the general cult lifestyle of Northern California.
Like, when you met them, were they really charming and...
Yes, charismatic. Yes, absolutely. Enough for me to look past, the presentation.
Yeah.
Which was, a bit nuts. Very charming, very charismatic, very knowledgeable. I'll give them that. I learned so much there, and it was really terrific education. They knew what they were doing. So that mitigated the madness a little bit.
And how did you make it through 18 months?
Well, I set the tone after the Book Expo visit. At one point during that trip, the entire office had gone to a nightclub for an early dinner and drink. And after drinks, the youngest brother grabbed my ass, 2 hands, at the bar, in full view of everybody, quite proudly. And if memory serves, I think he even gave it a hearty shake. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to do anything right now. I need to process that this is even happening. And so when I got back to the office to New York, I was, understandably out of my mind. And I called the head of the company and I said, look, I'm an attorney and you guys fucked up. So, here's what's going to happen, or else you're going to have a lawsuit on your hands. And I gave them my list of, how I wanted things to be run. And of course, everything slipped, and it included changing the locks and all of that so the guy couldn't come in. But they knew early on that I wasn't afraid to say, this will not fly. And it wasn't pleasant, it wasn't lovely, but it certainly was a shot across the bow. And so they laid off to some degree, and they got very upset when they had to do that, if memory serves. There was a lot of trying to intimidate and, get me to agree to taking less money in certain situations. And, it was ugly, but I did set the tone with, I will sue you. I've only been with the company for a month, but I will sue you.
So it's I think that's where, your 3 years of law school definitely came in handy. But I also, this is something that comes up, and, people have asked me, if I would ever kind of broach this topic in the podcast. And since it has now come up, what would you do if that were to happen today? In that situation in the bar, would you have done anything differently?
It's a great question. I don't know if I would, because my silence is not embarrassment. It was shock. So I guess, if it happened a second time, I might, react differently than I did the first time that happened to me. But, I don't think that I don't think I would react differently. I was talking to a really close friend of mine who I'm working on a couple of projects with, and we went to all-girls school together, and we were talking about how it didn't occur to us, because we were not raised and trained this way, it didn't occur to us to be quiet on much of anything. When we got to college, we were, sort of astounded that there were a lot of girls who cared about how they looked and appeared in class, and we were raising our hands and shouting answers. And of course, everyone else eventually caught up. But that headspace of, this is mine, this is my space, stay out of it, is pretty much bred in the bone.
It's been interesting to hear how different people handle either kind of a toxic boss or that type of behavior, and what to do. And, and I think, in your situation, coming back shortly thereafter, with a kind of a firm, I don't know if it's a threat, but kind of a firm, like, look, this is how this is going to work now. And, and leveraging that, I think, is just, it's a great way to do it. 'Cause sometimes it is hard in the moment to kind of react in a way. it's hard, especially in a public place. I think it can be challenging for folks.
No, absolutely. The other thing I would just say on that topic is the minute that I got back to my hotel room, I wrote down every single thing that happened so that I wouldn't forget anything. And I basically treated it like I was starting a legal brief. And that's what I would say to anyone who has a situation like that take place, is to, even if you can't react in the moment, write a detailed account of what happened. And the fact that it's done essentially in the moment is very helpful for any blowback you might have in the future in trying to deal with the issue.
Jessica Dorfman Jones, thank you very much for being on Not Suitable for Work.
Thank you so much. I had such a lovely time.
During interviews, everyone is or should be on their best behavior. That being said, there are always clues about a company's culture and management style if you're observant and looking for them. First and foremost, how are you being treated during the interview process? That's a great reflection of how you will be treated once you're hired. How are colleagues treating one another? Are they sniping about each other and rolling their eyes when someone's name is mentioned? How are you greeted by the receptionist, and how do employees treat the receptionist? Last but not least, try to get a scouting report from others in the industry. Check out websites such as Glassdoor. I wholeheartedly agree with Jessica. No matter how much you want to start a new career, trust your gut. When you're interviewing and you're getting a bad vibe, pay attention and take a pass. Thank you for listening to Not Suitable for Work. If you haven't, take a quick second to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. If you want more Not Suitable for Work or have a work story to share, be sure to follow us on Facebook at Not Suitable for Work. You can find us on Apple Podcast or wherever you find your podcast. And now we're on the iHeartRadio app. If you have a question you want answered on a future episode, call us at 872-256-0827. I'm Peter C. Diamond. You can follow me on Twitter at Peter C. Diamond. Not Suitable for Work is produced by Matt Cunningham at Truthful Enthusiasm. Get your story online with truthfulenthusiasm.com. Until next time.